Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Overwatch Weekly. This week has been a pretty big and busy week for Overwatch as a game, so I want to jump right into this stuff and talk about all of the things that have been going on. So, I want to start with the PTR patch notes and the PTR update that we got yesterday, February 26th. There are a lot of things to cover with that. So I want to try to not spend too much time on it, so we'll see how it goes. But the biggest thing, of course, added into this PTR patch, biggest thing added so far in 2019 is Hero 30. The new hero has been put on the PTR. It is Baptiste. Baptiste is a support hero. If you want to see the origin story video or the dev update where Jeff Kaplan talks about Baptiste, if you want to see the video I did where I show you the abilities that he has and how they work and whatnot, that's all down below. There's also a couple videos from Stylosa, one where he interviews Jeff where they talk about Baptiste. There's going to be another interview from that same kind of discussion that comes out today at some point when you're the day you're watching this video. I don't know when, or the day this video comes out, so that'll be something. He also did a video where he went over one of Baptiste's abilities and kind of tested to see how it works. So if you want to check that out, that's also down below, as well as the teaser that we had gotten last week for Baptiste. If you want to check that as well, gives you a little bit of lore information on the character as well. But to give kind of this little rundown that they have here on the patch highlights, Baptiste is a battle-hardened combat medic who wields an assortment of experimental devices and weaponry to keep allies alive and eliminate his enemies. Baptiste's biotic launcher fires a 3-round burst that rewards accuracy and recoil control with significant damage output. His alternate fire lobs grenades that heal allies near the point of impact. With regenerative burst, Baptiste activates an intense surge that heals himself and nearby allies over time. When danger is near, Baptiste can toss out his immortality field to prevent allies from dying. Baptiste moves around the battlefield with exo boots, jumping over obstacles and clearing distances that would stop other heroes. Baptiste deploys his amplification matrix as his ultimate, which doubles the damage and healing effects of friendly projectiles. So if you want to see that stuff in action, like I said, link in the description to several different videos where you can check all that kind of stuff out. You can find all that in the description down below. Next, let's get into the other updates to this PTR patch. Like I said, there's a lot, so let's jump into the general updates first, starting with armor. Beam type damage is now reduced by 20% when hitting armor, and damage over time effects are no longer mitigated by armor. So the developer comments on this one because this one's a little bit more comments are needed. The damage taken by armor from damage over time effects, such as Widowmaker's Venom Mine and beam weapons like Symmetra's Photon Projector, varied greatly. Now it will be more consistent and predictable. So I believe that also applies to stuff like Winston's Tesla Cannon, obviously Moira's Biotic Grasp, Zarya's Beam, so all that kind of stuff. Those are all things that have been affected, so it's now a universal 20% across the board, and the damage over time effects are no longer mitigated by armor. That might be more of what Winston's is, but I don't think his is. I think his is a beam type. Next, you have damage boost, which is now applied when a projectile is fired, rather than when it hits a target. So it used to be that you would have damage boost Zarya until the damage boost wouldn't be applied until the Zarya's right click hit, but now it's applied when it is launched. With knockback distance is now more consistent, and heroes that are flying can now be knocked back and slowed. There's a sound change, some new sounds. A new sound plays when you land a hit while damage boosted, and a new sound plays when you land a hit but it doesn't do any damage. Obviously, that is a feature with Baptiste. Next, we get into the hero updates, where there's a lot. So first, Ana changed to the Nano Boost. The heal reduced from 300 to 250, so now when you use it on another hero, they don't gain 300 health, they gain 250 health. With Doomfist, both his Rising Uppercut and Seismic Slam had their cooldowns reduced from 7 seconds to 6 seconds. Hanzo's Sonic Arrow had its detection radius increased from 7 to 9 meters. Lucio's Sonic Amplifier now counts towards offensive assists when he uses Soundwave. With McCree, Fan the Hammer had its damage reduced from 55 to 50, and Deadeye's damage per second was increased from 275 to 550 after locking onto targets for 2.5 seconds. For May's Endothermic Blaster, primary fire damage was increased from 2.25 to 2.75, which is about 45 to 55 damage per second. And with Ice Wall, the health was reduced from 500 to 400. With Moira, her Biotic Grasp had its heal over time duration increased from 3 to 4 seconds, and the total healing was increased from 50 to 65. Now, I believe that total healing comes from right-clicking, all that's what Biotic Grasp is. But I guess it isn't, because I thought Biotic Grasp was just the right-click, but these minor changes make Moira's passive healing effect on Biotic Grasp slightly more effective when topping off an ally's health. So I always kind of forget the way it works fully, but I'm glad Moira got a bit of a buff, because I feel like she's been a little down in terms of, like, she's definitely viable, but I guess her primary is that. So I think this is to her healing ability, because the heal over time duration, obviously now you just kind of do a quick spray and then you do 65 healing or whatever, so that's pretty good. For Orisa's Fusion Driver, the movement speed penalty while firing was reduced from 50% to 30%, so Orisa can move quicker now while shooting, and it's noticeably quicker when you play it in-game. It is very noticeable. With Pharah, her rocket launcher's minimum explosion damage was increased from 16.25 to 20. And the dev comment for this one is that this change sets the rocket launcher's minimum damage to where it was before we rebalance its direct impact and explosion damage in a recent patch. So the direct impact doesn't change at all. It's just that the minimum damage from when you're on the outside is now 20 to the 16.25. So I don't think you do any more damage on a direct hit. It's just on a it just does more when it's like a burst hit. With Soldier 76, the Pulse Rifle had its damage increased from 19 to 20. Sprint had its delay before you can fire the weapon after using it reduced from 0.5 to 0.3 seconds. And with Tactical Visor, it can now target Riptire and Immortality Field. So things you can shut down to save your team. Sombra, this is a huge change for Sombra. Her hack cooldown is reduced by half when hacking a health pack. So now, when you hack a player, it'll still take 8 seconds to get hacked back, but if you hack a health pack, it'll take only 4 to get back, which is massive, and helps Sombra out a bunch in making her a little bit more viable as that off-support kind of role if you feel like running her that way. With Torbjorn, his base health was increased by 50 armor, so he now has 250 maximum health, and Overload now has, instead of 150 armor gained, it's now 100 to make up for the increased health on Torbjorn. With Widowmaker, Infrasight now reveals enemy health bars, but it's now cancelled when Widowmaker dies. So it makes Infrasight a little bit more risky to use. It's one of those things where you have to stay alive while using it. I think it's a very interesting change. The health bars are very useful, I think. The final hero change is with Wrecking Ball, and it is a shield change, an adaptive shield change. And oh my gosh, is this the best change. Wrecking Ball needed this so badly. When you use adaptive shield, it no longer cancels roll mode. Oh my gosh. Wrecking Ball felt so awkward to use because you couldn't adaptive shield and be spinning around, because then you came out of it and then you were sitting duck for a second and you died. So this is a huge change, and I'm really glad they made it. Major improvement in my opinion. So that's everything for the PTR patch notes. Like I said, if you want to see more stuff about Baptiste, that can be found in the description down below. If you want to check out the full patch notes, read all of the dev comments, or see bug fixes, whatnot, stuff like that, stuff I don't cover, that is all found down in the description down below. But there are some other things that have been going on. And this next one comes from Reddit, from a user by the name of Karahi, or Karahe, on the Overwatch subreddit. And the name of the post is, "I found unused interactions for Luna in the game files." And there is some interesting stuff about what they mean, but the very top thing is, so the reason why they're unused is because the recording sessions with the voice actors of the heroes Luna would be interacting with aren't done yet. So there are some voice lines here that you can look at if you would like to. I'm not going to talk too much about them, but there's some interesting stuff in here, especially just for kind of speculation, who they might connect to and whatnot. But there is an article from February 20th where that he links to in this post, that, where they talk about the fact that it's not finished yet. Not all the voice lines, not all the voice sessions have been done, but there's some really interesting stuff in here if you want to check it out. It's a pretty long post. If you want to read it, I would recommend it because it's pretty interesting. But obviously, I don't expect everybody to enjoy it, so that's there if you want it. Next, competitive season 14 is wrapping up soon, but season 15 will start like right after it, so I'll give you, of course, full details. Season 14, if you have been playing, you will have known that it's ending soon. It'll end on Thursday, February 28th, so tomorrow, at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern, or March 1st at midnight UTC. And season 15 will literally launch as soon as season 14 ends. There will be no off season. It won't be a 2-hour off season. There will be no off season at all. And that's, of course, the main thing. There's stuff about CP and stuff about whatnot, stuff you'll gain, season 14 rewards, all that kind of stuff, down below. But that is how you can take a look at competitive stuff. Finally, my last story is about the Overwatch League. A little bit different, though. A bit of a controversy surrounding the Boston Uprising. And it has nothing to do with the owner of the Boston Uprising, Robert Kraft. It has to do with Fusions. Now, Fusions, if you don't know, is a main tank player for the Boston Uprising, who is one of their more recent signings. They signed him in the offseason. They originally signed him to a 2-way contract, which is a contract where the player is essentially a part of the main roster, but they're also a part of the contenders roster, so the academy team for their team. So in this case, it is Uprising Academy in North American Contenders. And Fusions was on the Contenders team in the final season of 2018 Contenders Season 3. And right before the regular season started for the Overwatch League, the Boston Uprising traded away one of their main tank players, Gamsu, to the Shanghai Dragons. Fusions, who was also a main tank player, was then moved up from that 2-way contract to the full roster. And he played in the first 2 games of the season, and when the third game of the season came around, the league informed Boston Uprising that Fusions would not be able to play. So there were some issues that came in that. They had, of course, planned for him to play up until that point in time, and then all of a sudden they found out that he wasn't able to play a few hours before the game. They had to completely change their game plan with a different main tank being run. In this case, it would have been Axiom instead of Fusions. Fusions have been playing very, very well. And when they found out, there was another rule that was never really talked about by the league. There was no real sign of this rule, where being a 2-way player is more than just if you play in the Overwatch League for more than 2 games, you can no longer play in Contenders. It's also that if you played in the most recent season of Contenders, you cannot play more than 2 games. So because he competed in the most recent season of Contenders, he wasn't able to play for more than 2 games. Now, the Overwatch League did release a statement, which I have linked in the description to an original article. In that article, you can find a link to this statement if you are interested. But the official statement from the Overwatch League spokesperson was as follows. In order to preserve the competitive integrity of the 2018 Overwatch Contenders Season 3 and avoid a possible influx of OWL level talent competing in the Contenders ecosystem prior to the 2019 Overwatch League season, beginning on September 19th, the league added a clause to its two-way contracts rules, stating that two-way players who participated in the then upcoming Season 3 of Contenders 2018 could not play in more than 2 matches during Stage 1 of the 2019 Overwatch League season. As two-way contract player Fusions had already played twice for the Boston Uprising in Stage 1, he was ineligible to play in Friday's match against the Shanghai Dragons. Unfortunately, the league office did not determine he was ineligible until shortly before Boston's match was set to begin, and we apologize for that oversight. So, what this means is Fusions won't be able to play until Stage 2. Stage 2 is not going to begin until the beginning of April. And this isn't the only player that's affected by this. Elk of the Philadelphia Fusion had to play 2 games for the Philadelphia Fusion already because of Boombox being out. Now, in hindsight, obviously, or in reality, Elk is not being brought up to the main roster like what Fusions was. So it's a little bit different of a situation. But obviously, if you know anything about what happened, the Boston Uprising did lose that game against the Shanghai Dragons. So it's a bit of an issue and a bit of a problem that this happened, and there was no kind of comment until right before it happened. And I think that clause should have been more specified, and that clause probably should have been in there from the beginning, but it seems that it was not, and it has caused, in my opinion, a major issue for a team that I think looked pretty good and had a lot of ups and a lot of positives. Basically, they lost for the same reason why Shanghai was struggling at the beginning of this season, the first couple games on the stage, because you're trying to game plan or play around a teammate, or in this case, a composition of players that wasn't meant to be playing together in that way in that time. So it's not the best look for the Overwatch League, honestly, but we'll see how the Boston Uprising follow this all up. Obviously, Fusions will start to play again, I believe, in Stage 2. I think once Contender Season 1 starts, as long as Fusions is not playing in that, he is completely fine and able to play with no hiccups and no issues in the Overwatch League for Stage 2. So they'll have him for the majority of the season, but they got a win out of him. He got some game time in Stage 1, and we'll see what happens when we get to Stage 2. But for now, we will have to wait and see. So, little update. I've just putting this video together, and I was checking out the Boston Uprising Twitter account. The Huck, the general manager for the Boston Uprising, tweeted out that Fusions is actually approved and eligible to play this week, week 3 of the Overwatch League. And his full statement is happy to announce that Fusions is approved and eligible to play this week. Although he obviously did not agree with the rules, was happy that Overwatch League was quick to work with us and other teams. So, put this whole thing in the video, and I left it in, of course, just to discuss it and kind of give my thoughts on the matter without knowing what had gone on. But yes, I know that, of course, he will be able to play. I think this is a huge help for the Boston Uprising. I think they will benefit greatly from just having their full team, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But the video is over, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. It helps out a lot with the channel and with what I like to try to do around here, and your support means a lot to me, so I appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts on anything I've talked about, your thoughts on Baptiste, on these changes to the PTR. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but that's everything. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and bye-bye.